Everywhere else America goes, you must know they never go to help those people. They go to destabilize those countries. They did the same thing in Libya. They did the same thing in Iraq. They did the same thing in Afghanistan. Now they want to come to South Africa and destabilize it. We must unite against American imperialism and colonialism. We must not be intimidated by Elon Musk and everybody who stands with him.
I'm a king. Yes.
We are told to move on from the crimes of apartheid, yet the reality of apartheid remains the same, because a white life in this country is worth more than black life. We must ask the ruling government, why do we not tell those who seek to sanction us for fighting for our land that it was Nelson Mandela's dream that South Africa should be equal? Why do we not remind the international community that Nelson Mandela did not stand for reconciliation only, but he believed that the land and the wealth of South Africa must be shared? The approach of this government, which seeks to plead with imperialism, is cowardice, and we must never allow it. The USA is not interested in diplomacy. The USA is interested in dominance over us by any means necessary. Whether Donald Trump's like it or not, we are going to fight for the return of the land in South Africa. Where was the USA when our mothers were fed to pigs in Limpopo by white farmers? Where were the sanctions of America when a child was shot by a farmer in the Northern Cape for picking a flower on his farm, and we were told that this child was mistaken for a monkey? Why were our people who were stuffed into a coffin alive in Mpumalanga not offered refugee status in America? Why is the International Criminal Court to prosecute Voter Basson, Dr. Death, who used chemical warfare and medicine to poison and kill anti-apartheid activists? Voter Basson, who committed these human rights violations, is sitting comfortably here in South Africa while victims of his biological warfare suffered the consequences and never saw justice. These are the people who have never appreciated with how they came to enjoy their wealth and power. People who still see us as servants, as laborers, as conquered people. People who did not even consider themselves Africans until it became convenient to do so, to claim indigent to our land after calling themselves Europeans for centuries. Today, we are told that we are violating property rights when we demand our land from people who called themselves Europeans just 30 years ago. Those who stole our land must face the truth that they acquired land through theft and genocide. Let them explain to us how they can still feel entitled to our land when they've never acknowledged the rivers of blood that were spilled to build their world. We demand prosecution of apartheid crimes, and that must be where the USA begins its investigation of genocide and violations of human rights. All those Boers who killed our people during apartheid must be arrested. All the army generals of the apartheid army must be arrested. All the apartheid policemen who came here in Sharpville and killed our people, they must still be prosecuted. The apartheid regime in South Africa did not fall on its own. It was forced to its knee by the unbreakable resistance of the people and the relentless pressure of the international community. Nations across the world took a stand against racist state by imposing trade sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and sporting boycotts that crippled the apartheid economy and exposed its brutality to the world. It was a pan-African struggle supported by our fellow African nations who understood that the oppression of one African nation was an attack on the entire continent. Zambia, under the leadership of Kenneth Kaunda, became a frontline state for the liberation movements, providing a safe haven for exiled ANC and PAC members. Zimbabwe, following its independence in 1980, played a crucial role in supporting South African liberation fighters, offering training camps, military aid, and political backing in international forums. Mozambique gave direct military support to the ANC armed wing Umkhonto weSizwe and allowed freedom fighters to use Mozambican territory for training and strategic operations. Tanzania, under Julius Nyerere, provided training facilities, refugee, and ideological guidance to the liberation movements. Nyerere was a strong advocate of African unity and used his influence to mobilize support for sanctions against apartheid. Angola offered military training camps and armed resistance against South African Defense Force. Nigeria imposed an all embargo on apartheid South Africa and used its diplomatic influence to push for global sanctions. Successive Nigerian governments provided scholarships for South African students and financial assistance to liberation movements. As pressure mounted, individual nations took their own bold steps. Sweden, Norway, and Denmark were amongst the first to completely halt trade and investment with South Africa, setting a moral standard for the rest of the world. India was the first country to cut diplomatic ties with South Africa in 1946 and consistently pushed for international isolation of the apartheid state. One of the most powerful tools used against apartheid South Africa was its expulsion from the global sporting community. South Africa was banned in soccer, in rugby, and in cricket, and teams of nations opposed to apartheid, and their athletes refused to compete with teams representing apartheid South Africa. These international sanctions, along the armed resistance and internal uprising led by the liberation movements, created unbearable pressure that apartheid could not withstand. The question we must ask is, where was Israel and USA, which seek to call us a nation that commits human rights violation today, when the world turned its back on apartheid South Africa? The United States, the United Kingdom under Margaret Thatcher, and Israel were amongst the worst offenders, actively supporting the apartheid regime. Let us never forget that the USA classified our freedom fighters as terrorists. The CIA assisted in the capture of Nelson Mandela in 1962, handing him over to the apartheid regime. The USA sold weapons to the apartheid government, helped them develop nuclear technology, and even gave intelligence to the South African military, which it used to target anti-apartheid activists. We must never succumb to pressure of America. America has never helped us with anything, even during apartheid. They cannot threaten us now with sanctions. Everywhere else America goes, you must know, they never go to help those people. They go to destabilize those countries. They did the same thing in Libya. They did the same thing in Iraq. They did the same thing in Afghanistan. Now they want to come to South Africa and destabilize it. We must unite against American imperialism and colonialism. We must not be intimidated by Elon Musk and everybody who stands with him. All those who are offered an opportunity to go to America because there is a genocide against them in South Africa, you are free to go. The borders are opened for racists to leave South Africa. We have no home for racists in South Africa. Our friends will never be United Kingdom. Our friends will never be France. Our friends will never be USA. They were never there for us during difficult time. We support Russia because Russia equipped us, Russia trained us, gave us education, gave us money to fight with the apartheid government. We will never stand with Ukraine. And we don't want Zelensky to visit South Africa because he's a puppet of the Western forces. Our people are being killed in Sudan. Life is being lost. No one is saying anything because it's an African life. We must fight and always continue to raise the plight of the children and women of Sudan. We want peace in Mozambique. We want free and fair elections in Mozambique. We want free and fair elections in Zimbabwe. We call on Zimbabweans to stop being cowards and confront Mnangagwa's government and go and reclaim their own country. They cannot continue to stay in South Africa as if they are enjoying life here. You will never enjoy life in somebody else's country. You can only enjoy life if you go home and remove ZANU-PF from power and arrest those who are stealing the gold of Zimbabwe.
I'm a king, yes, I'm a king. I'm a king.